Hey guys, how's it going? Gilly here from the Retro Oasis, and today we have the review of the new Anbernic RG353V. That's the new vertical handheld console from Anbernic that really brings up the nostalgia that looks so much like the original Game Boy. But here you can do a lot more retro gaming, so let's check this one out. Welcome to the Oasis. Full disclosure, I got this device from Anbernic with the help of Stubbs from the Retro Handheld Discord server. I have the link for their YouTube channel in the description, and I really encourage you to check their videos. They have great content about these wonderful devices. That being said, no one from Anbernic watched or approved this video before I uploaded. All opinions here are my own and nobody else's. Also, if you're interested in this device, consider using the purchase link from the description. You don't pay anything extra and support the channel at the same time. But before that, let's check if it's worth your money. There are two versions of this handheld, the RG353V, that is the one I have in my hands, and a tad more expensive, but it has dual boot, with Linux and Android. The other version is the RG353VS, single boot with Linux. Both models have the same SoC, the RK3566, but the V has 2 GB of RAM, while the VS only 1 GB. That actually should be plenty for Linux OS. It has 2 memory card slots, one for the Linux system files that comes on a 16 GB card. Once again, depending on the buying option you choose, there's an additional card with games. But you can also buy without any games and add your own. It has a 3.5 LCD IPS display with the resolution 640 by 480 and 4:3 aspect ratio. That's perfect for most of the systems you're going to be playing here. Just a reminder, it's only a touchscreen on the V model. A 3200 mAh battery that should give you from 4 to 6 hours of playtime. One front-facing mono speaker. For connectivity, we have dual band Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, USB-C port, and mini HDMI out. And like I said, it runs Linux and Android depending on the version. There are several available colors for this device and different buying options. I strongly recommend you click on the link of the official store in the description to know a little more. Let's start with a tour of the device. Most of the buttons are the same from previous Anbernic devices, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. We have the D-pad here, A, B, X, Y, Nintendo style, commonly used by Anbernic. In the middle we have a function button that's going to be used as a hotkey in RetroArch and as a home button on Android. Below, an LED light, here select and start. Further below, the mono speaker. I'm glad they've decided to place it in the middle. On the RG351V, for example, is in the corner and you end up covering with your hands when you play. But going back to the main attraction, we have the thumbsticks here that also carry the L3 and R3 functionality. On top we have an USB-C for peripherals, mini HDMI out, and the headphone jack. The volume buttons on the left. On the right, the power button, reset button, and the 2 memory card slots. TF1 internal with the Linux system files, and TF2 external where you can place your games. On the bottom we have one more USB-C port, but this one is for charging your device. And on the back we have the shoulder buttons that technically are not on the shoulder. The D-pad is very classic and reminds me of the one of the SNS controller. It's not my favorite, but works well on these retro handheld devices. It has a rubber membrane underneath, just like the other buttons on this device. It's soft and has great rotation with medium travel. When fully pressed, it rests slightly above the shell, the way I like it. It measures 21.7 mm. The smaller Mio Mini has a similar D-pad with exactly 1 mm less, 20.7. The Odin Pro is a bigger device with the same D-pad of the PS Vita, my favorite, with 19.4 mm. I think the size here is pretty average, and it's exactly what you expect from a D-pad. The A, B, X, Y buttons are great, just like on other Anbernic devices. These are pretty silent with medium travel. And just like the D-pad, they rest above the shell when pressed. They measure 7.7 mm. exactly the same size of the ones on the Mio Mini. On the Odin, they are a tiny bit smaller with 7.5mm, and even smaller on the Nintendo 3DS XL with 7.3mm. As I said, they are really good and comfortable to press. Not much to mention about select, start and function. They do what you expect from them. They have more travel, and when pressed, they stay flush with the body. The analog sticks are the same used on the Nintendo Switch, and we all know them, being very popular on these Chinese handhelds. They're recessed, which is great if you want to carry the device in your pocket. My only issue with them is the location, but we'll talk about that in a little while. L1, L2, R1 and R2, as I mentioned, are on the back and curved, following the contour of the device. I like that, as it leaves your fingers in a comfortable position. The RG351V has more straight lines. It's less comfortable. They are clicky, but with the same rubber membrane underneath, making them more silent than usual. And they have a very short travel for a quick response. Let's talk about the build quality. One more time, Anbernic showed what it's known for, delivering a well-built and very solid handheld. They used a matte plastic, a bit different of what you're used to. The RG353P, for example, also have a matte plastic, but it's different, with a simpler finish. The 353V seems to have a better quality plastic, with more premium finish. You can feel it when you touch. It almost feels rubbery, but it's not. It's a pleasure to hold, and all parts and seams fit really well here. Anbernic did a great job. Talking about ergonomics, it's basically what you expect from a vertical handheld. If you ever had an original Game Boy or Game Boy Color, will be right at home. I have massive hands and I must say I prefer bigger devices. The RG351V fits really well in my hands, and I did use this device as my daily driver for quite some time. So I did feel the difference in size when I got the RG353V, since it's smaller. But we'll get to the size soon, and I hold it like that. My thumbs stay on top of the D-pad and face buttons, and my index fingers rest naturally on top of the back buttons. Very comfortable. The problem is if I have to use the thumbsticks and the back buttons at the same time. We have quite a distance between them, and using both at the same time can be very uncomfortable. I have to make an effort to fold my thumbs into position, and even like that I have trouble reaching L2 and R2. The less painful way to use it is like this, holding just with my fingers. It's not perfect, but since the handheld is not that heavy, I can play like that for a long time. About the size, the height is about 12.6 cm or 5 inches, width about 8.3 cm or 3.27 inches, depth about 2.6 cm or 1 inch at the thickest part. For size comparison, side by side with the RG280V. Here with the RG351V, with the Mio Mini, Nintendo DS XL and the PS Vita. For the weight, it's only 188 grams or 6.6 ounces. The RG351V is heavier, 224 grams or 8 ounces. Mio Mini, a lot lighter with 106 grams or 3.7 ounces. The Nintendo 3DS XL, a lot heavier with 337 grams or 11.8 ounces. Okay, with the card holding the games inserted on the second slot, once on, this is the interface you'll find. It's been modified by Anbernic, but it's based on Batocera 31. The card has separate folders for different retro systems, and the games stay inside these folders. If you buy the device without the games and want to use your own card, you just need to insert on the second slot and turn on the console. This first boot will take a little longer as the system will create all the folders inside the card automatically. Then you just need to put the card on your PC and copy the games to their respective folders. Okay, back to the interface. It's separated by retro systems. To start a game, just choose a system with an A and select a game with A again. That's it, you can start playing. One great advantage of this interface compared with the previous ones from Anbernic is that all retro systems are configured with the correct aspect ratio. When we start Game Boy, for example, it looks like this, a square image like on the original console. This is excellent for people like me that like to play these games the way they were meant to be played. But if you'd rather play in full screen, that's not a problem. Just press Start on the main menu, go to Game Settings, And in game ratio, you choose 4:3, the aspect ratio of the device. When you go back to the game, it will be in full screen. That will affect every system, but if you want to apply to just a specific system, you can use the option per system advanced configuration and choose the one you want. But since most of the older consoles are 4:3, most games will be in full screen anyway. Now, since we mentioned the screen, let's have a look. Let's compare with two other Anbernic devices with same size, same resolution, 640 by 480, and same aspect ratio, 4:3. I gotta tell you, I could not find any difference between these screens. At least not just looking at it. Nonetheless, this screen is beautiful with great viewing angles, brightness, and saturated colors. Now, if I compare with another device, the RG353V, things change drastically. The 552 has one of the best screens I've ever used on a handheld console, with super saturated colors that jumps out of the screen. But as I mentioned, the display on the 353V is very good and you're gonna have a blast with it. Booting the device without the card in slot 1 goes straight to Android. You can also do that with the card inserted. You just need to press the function and power button at the same time. And it's Android like you know it. Too bad it doesn't come with Google Play service installed. You're gonna have to do that on your own. Just one thing I'd like to show you is that you can access your games on the memory card in slot 2. The Android side comes with several emulators pre-installed, but the cool thing is the front end Anbernic included. To access, you just need to swipe from top to bottom and touch this icon here. It's a cool thing to have access to all your games from this OS. It's just too bad that the hard to emulate system's performance is not great on Android. So to me, the Batocera ends up being the better option to play. Now let's compare the audio quality, starting with the RG351V that also has a mono speaker. And the sound is not very loud, reaching 87 decibels top. The RG351MP has dual stereo speakers that are much louder, reaching a little more than 100 decibels. And the 353V has the sound a little louder than the 351V and a little quieter than the 351MP, with 93.7 decibels. The mono speaker on this device is loud enough, with very clear sound, but it's too bad they passed on the stereo speaker. Okay, let's test some games. Game Boy and Game Boy Color look amazing on this handheld that looks so much like the original device. Nintendo DS is another system that runs really well here. Sega Master System and Genesis look really good in this display. NES and SNES are two other systems with 4:3 aspect ratio that play the way they were meant to. No issues running Neo Geo and Neo Geo Pocket here. You will be able to play the majority of our arcade games with the exception of difficult to emulate games like Killer Instinct. You can get great performance with the Nintendo 64 and most of the titles will play just fine. The original PlayStation also runs great. Dreamcast is a system that has a hard time running on weaker machines, but it runs really well here. Not all titles will run super smooth, and you'll feel a few hiccups here and there, but in general it's a very enjoyable experience. PSP is another system difficult to emulate on the previous generation. Despite having trouble to run games like God of War, you can play several titles without problems on the RG353V, even though the aspect ratio doesn't help much.
Knocks it past the defense.
And last but not least, we have some game streaming with xCloud. I can say it works great on this device. I manually downloaded and installed the APK for the Microsoft Edge browser and it works like a charm. So this is another option if you have this console.
She's amazing, right? Yeah, she's taking promo shots for the film.
The RG353V is a retro handheld console with positives and negatives like any other. I love vertical handhelds and I really enjoyed this one. Anbernic improved a few aspects like the plastic used, that's high quality and a pleasure to touch. The display is very similar to other devices with the same 4:3 aspect ratio that's perfect for retro gaming. The HDMI out and the possibility to add external controllers make this a versatile device. A portable multiplayer machine. One of the best things for me is the optimization Anbernic did on top of Batocera. They usually mess up the software, but this time managed to leave the systems configured the right way, straight from the factory, turning this into a truly plug-and-play device. Literally, you just plug and play. Not to mention the nostalgic form factor. It looks great with several colors to choose from. One thing that really bothered me was the location of the thumbsticks down low. It's problematic to use them simultaneously with the shoulder buttons, but I managed to adapt somehow. The speaker being on the front and center is great, but mono. It's loud enough for your gameplay, but Anbernic should have invested a couple of dollars more to make it stereo. With that being said, considering the price and what this handheld is capable of, I do think the RG353V or VS is a good buy if you enjoy the nostalgic form factor and it's looking for a device easy to use. If you don't like spending too much time configuring your system and want something truly plug and play, maybe the 353V or VS is the machine for you. Once again, the purchase link for the RG353V is in the description if you feel like picking one up. Buying with this link, you don't pay anything extra and you support the channel to bring more content to you. And before you go, if this video was useful to you in any way, consider leaving a like before you go and subscribe for more videos like this one. Once again, Guilherme here from the Retro Oasis. Thanks for watching and I'll see you soon.